The Chinese army is building a bridge rather rapidly across the Pangong Tso. Satellite images show that the speed of construction peaked during winters. The bridge is near completion. China was on the back foot after India's quid pro quo operations on the south bank of Pangong Tso. Its soldiers had to move all around the lake and then come to the south bank. Now they can just zip across this new bridge. Time reduced from then about 12 hours to now under 3 hours, and the distance reduced from then approximately 200 odd kilometers to now around 50 kilometers. Ankit Kumar brings us this report with the latest satellite images.
One of the world's highest lakes and the epicenter of the world's biggest military standoff. It is here in Ladakh in May 2020 that China triggered a historic military mobilization on both sides. A deployment that continues to this day, with the two Asian giants massed against each other across the line of actual control. And now, nearly a year after the two sides disengaged from this tense friction point on the Pangong Lake's shores, forced by India's aggressive preemptive push into areas south of the lake, something has emerged. Take a close look at these images. What you're seeing is a 315-meter military bridge built by the Chinese across the narrowest point of the gigantic Himalayan lake. Maxar satellite images accessed by India today show this under-construction bridge. Heavy construction equipment, including cranes, deployed in the area by Chinese engineers. Work on this bridge began in September last year. Built aggressively during the winter, the Chinese bridge is nearly complete. And once it is, it could be a game changer. Before the bridge was built, Chinese forces had to move nearly 300 kilometers or 10 hours around the lake to remobilize on the southern shores where the Indian army had taken surprise aggressive postures in 2020. Now with this bridge, the Chinese army can pour its forces into the Kailash Ranges area within just a couple of hours. In other words, the advantage India had in this area is being aggressively undermined by the Chinese. Taken aback by what the Indian army had done in 2020 by occupying heights on the southern banks of the lake, the bridge represents China's attempt to make sure it can never happen again. India has strongly objected to the construction of the bridge in area held by the Chinese for over 6 decades.
Our government has been monitoring this activity closely. This bridge is being constructed in areas that have been under the illegal occupation by China for around 60 years now. As you're well aware, India has never accepted such illegal occupation.
China has been rapidly building infrastructure, including roads and bridges in the region, including in the Galwan Valley, since the India-China standoff. India too has speeded up construction of roads and bridges for quick movement of men and material to match the Chinese deployments. But the Chinese bridge is by far the most aggressive move with iron and bricks in the ongoing Ladakh standoff.
This is going to change the entire dynamics of LAC because this infrastructure is not linked to the infrastructure development in Western Tibet, but with the aim of changing the status quo on the LAC now as well as in future.
And it makes them logistically better and tactically better, gives them better battlefield mobility also. So I think China should be a little sensitive to the Indian concerns, and if they can do that, we also have certain options which are open to us.
While the under-construction bridge at Pangong Tso is only a fraction of the gigantic infrastructure overall deployed by China, it is also a prime reminder of China's true intentions and priorities with respect to India. In New Delhi, this is Ankit Kumar for India Today.
But what does the construction of this bridge at Pangong Tso mean? What are the ramifications for India? We have the finest military and diplomatic voices joining me here on India First. Let me introduce Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former Director General of Infantry and was posted at the Fire and Fury Corps in Ladakh. General Syed Atta Hasnain, he commanded the Kashmir Corps, but he commanded his battalion and formations around the Pangong Tso. And of course, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, he served in China. General Kulkarni, India's advantage on the south bank of Pangong Tso lost. Now the Chinese can quickly move men and material from the north to the south bank with this bridge.
Definitely, Gaurav. Firstly, good evening and thank you for having me over. Definitely, I think China, instead of building bridges for better relationships during the core commanders conferences and PPM, has decided to construct bridges to ruin relationships between the two countries. I think all these talks and all that is what is happening is nothing but buying time for consolidation. And definitely this particular bridge that is coming up, as what the satellite images show, about 27 kilometers north of the LAC, where at the narrowest, that's about 500 meters gap between the north and the southern bank, almost 400 meters ready. The way it is, that is going to cut down on timing. Obviously, all this will help in mobilization. It will help in switching of forces. It will now open up two axes for it, and it can further strengthen the Pangong Tso region by two roads now. It has one on the northern side, and now it has constructed one on the southern side. The one which takes about 10 to 12 hours, and now this one which takes about 3 hours. So there are two axes going down from Pangong Tso, that is Konark Fort onto all the fingers that we have. And of course, from Rock, it can come straight on Chushu. So therefore, it can switch the forces, it can consolidate, it can mobilize at the earliest.
So China can consolidate, China can mobilize. General Hasnain, we are told this is 27 kilometers from the line of actual control. Now, when India built a small bridge on Galwan River, China objected, and they're putting this huge bridge. What are India's options?
Hey, Gaurav, I agree entirely with what General Kulkarni has just stated. There is no doubt that for the last 60 years, China did not feel the necessity of constructing any such bridge to cut down the distance of response from the north of the Pangong Tso to the south of the Pangong Tso. It is after the 29th, 30th of August 2020, when India carried out its Kailash range operation, that the necessity for this has been felt. As we discussed in an earlier program with you, the Chinese were obviously taken by surprise, for one, and they felt that they had to cut down the response time because they did not expect that the Indian side would actually take an aggressive action or a quid pro quo action. Now, as far as the bridge on Galwan is concerned, there's no doubt we've even constructed the entire road from Tangsei up to Daulat Beg Oldie. So this war of infrastructure on both sides is continuing, there's no doubt. Anything which can give the tactical or an operational advantage, both sides will continue to do it. Because this is a situation of a standoff. We must continue militarily to put pressure on them during our talks, etc. also. And of course, diplomatically, if necessary, we must register a protest because this bridge is, after all, being constructed in our territory.
Yes, our territory held illegally by China for the past 60 years. Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, has India's response to this bridge been rather muted diplomatically? China sent out a very clear, belligerent, perhaps even hostile signal to India, irrespective of our sensitivities. They've built a bridge, and a big one. Now, what should our options be?
Gaurav, good evening. There are military options, there are strategic options which our defense experts can talk of. But yeah, as far as the reaction of India is concerned, I think the reaction was pretty forthright. As you played the comments of the spokesperson, he said very clearly that this territory is under illegal occupation of China for the last 60 years, and we do not accept that. Now, that is what can be said. China has a habit of reacting very strongly, and it is very important to register our views, our reaction to what China does. But Gaurav, moving slightly beyond just the bridge, I think we should take this whole exercise, the geostrategic chessboard that is being enacted. We should look at it in totality. What China is doing is the bridge is part of a bigger plot. And whether it is Doklam, whether it's Galwan, whether it is all across the LAC, China is building infrastructure, bases, airports, bridges at a breakneck speed.
Yes.
The important thing is the signal, the messaging that they are not going away. They are here to stay. They are lying in waiting. They are testing India's patience. They don't want conflict, but they want to surprise us. And I won't be surprised if they engage in some kind of a guerrilla tactics. And to me, who is not a military expert, but knowing how the Chinese operate, I think that is what we need to be prepared for, because they are testing our patience.
They're testing our patience. They also, and that is my fear, General Kulkarni and General Hasnain, Chinese may try some kind of guerrilla tactics and use a hatchet man, Pakistan, because this is one area. I mean, Karakoram, Daulat Beg Oldie, that's an area where Pakistan and China can operate together. But China's bridge, General Kulkarni, on Pangong Tso, would we see this as an intelligence or an operational lapse on India's part? Did we have options? What were our options if we knew what China was doing?
No, Gaurav, it wouldn't be seen in that context that, first and foremost, there's something that you can't see. Visually you can't see. There's a satellite imageries which will reveal what's going on in their territory. And since it's about 27 kilometers north of the LAC, so, in any case, the Chinese were taken aback, what General Hasnain said. They could not digest that even before they could blink, the Indians could occupy the Kailash range. It is that which has resulted. And just see the kind of infrastructure, the vast network that the Chinese are building in Tibet, which has a density population is not even 6 people per square mile, not even a kilometer, 6 people per square mile. That's the kind of density that they have. Let's see the amount of infrastructure development, be it bridges, be it roads, be it airfields, be it anything, power projects, the pipelines that they are laying, all this for what? It is primarily for dual purpose, the kind of villages that are coming up. Chinese are building up rapidly. You will not believe 1959, 7,300 kilometers of road network that China had.
Yes.
Today, 1,20,000 kilometers of fantastic network. What does that imply? 5 kilometers of construction per day. So from 1959 till date. And for us, 255 kilometers of what we constructed, like what was just brought out from Darbuk, Shok to DBO, is just 255 kilometers. And look at the cry and look at the anger Chinese showed, and look what has happened. Chinese are not interested in status quo ante. Chinese are interested in status quo. They will continue to build pressure. We must go about doing what.
No, but what should India's response be? We've discussed about this pressure, considering this is the second winter that the troops are deployed on either side at the LAC. And I've had the privilege of being on that 255-kilometer long road from Durbuk, Shok, all the way up to Daulat Beg, Oldie, ALG and back. General Hasnain, when we build infrastructure, when we built that road, China objected. China, on the other hand, continues to build not just this bridge or the roads leading to this bridge. They are building a number of roads in this area in response to our QPQ option. Now, does that reduce India's options next time? What should we be doing militarily and diplomatically?
Two aspects to your question, Gaurav. First of all this new infrastructure coming up around the bridge and south of the Pangong Tso, towards the Rudok area, how does it affect the operational environment? Definitely, you see, when you are fighting a battle on a line of control or line of actual control, you can't have all the troops being placed at the line of actual control. There will always be a requirement to respond with additional troops. For example, when the Indian side went and occupied the Kailash range, you found that there was a response from the other side, but that response was too small and too late.
Yes.
Therefore, nothing could be done. It's primarily for that reason that they are cutting down the time to move the troops from another area, another sector, to the area of the Moldo garrison and up there. Basically for the contingency of the Indian side, again trying to do something on the Kailash range. That is the prime reason for this bridge and for all the infrastructure which is coming up on the southern side of the lake. Now, as far as the larger question of what can you do, you see, when two sides are occupying areas along a established line, and this line is not an established line, of course, there are perceptions about it, but along a line, if they are there, you cannot do very much. When you are not in active operations, you cannot do very much to the side, to the developments which are taking place on the other side. For example, the Chinese could only protest as much as they could against our construction of the DBO road. Similarly, we cannot do very much. Taking a military action at this stage would almost amount to an action amounting to war.
Yes.
So therefore, it is the diplomatic option. It is the prime thing of bringing up this issue from time to time in the talks and playing it down on them to tell them that this is a dangerous step which they are taking. This kind of a thing is not acceptable to our side and will only lead up to a ratcheting of tensions all along.
But
how
not
much
that
this
they
will
care.
succeed is a matter of is a matter of conjecture.
Not that the Chinese care. I mean, given the fact that India couldn't have made our displeasure more clear in the number of engagements India and China have had on this issue, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, 14 rounds of co-commander level talks. There have been talks at the level of the External Affairs Minister, at the level of the Ministry of External Affairs, the Foreign Secretaries, and yet China continues to build up its infrastructure, bridges, missile silos, hospitals, garrisons, roads, heliports, and heliports very close to Daulat Beg, Oldie. All of that seems to indicate, as you very rightly pointed out, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, that they are here to stay for long, and yet our trade with China continues to spike.
Well, that is something that we need to correct. Obviously, overnight we cannot switch sources because the supply chains have to be built. But yes, it is very, very important that we cut down our dependencies on China and cut them down fast. But, it is not that all this is what China is doing is cost-free. Already China has lost India. 35 years of goodwill trust has been blown to pieces. But Chinese aggression is also resulting in a pushback everywhere. Look at Philippines. Duterte was an admirer of China. Today, yes. Duterte has decided to import BrahMos missiles from India. Country after country is understanding and knows what China is up to. Right now the reaction is tepid, but that tepid reaction can become a tsunami. And I won't be surprised because, you can push the world this far. But at the end of the day, there is going to be a pushback. And what India is doing is we are on the right path. We have held off the dragon. We have foiled their ambition. And we are also not sitting idle. We have also built 100 projects. We are strengthening our defenses. We are increasing our leverage. And I think it's a matter of time, as I keep saying, that Xi Jinping is riding a tiger. And there are only two ways that you can dismount the tiger.
Okay. Jalil Kulkarni, the second winter of deployment, there are reports that the Chinese winter-related fatalities, and I'm saying this very carefully, China reportedly had winter-related fatalities earlier this year, not officially acknowledged by China. Has China, in your appreciation, also painted itself in a corner, not just with India? India, of course, remains deployed, but are we now compelled to accept the current LAC as the new LAC?
Definitely, I look at it, Gaurav. Yes, I would say that preparation is the best way to prevent war. The troops are totally acclimatized. They know the Chinese are definitely on the back foot. Chinese will continue to build as much pressure as they can because they believe in their three warfare strategy. They want to go west campaign, and they're ensuring that in all kinds they must instigate India. They are looking for that one small little error that is committed by someone firing, and then they say, oh, well, you did something, and then the counterattack starts. All that nonsense which Chinese are capable of. We have to be ready. We have to be prepared. We have to have patience. We must continue to carry on talking. We must ensure that they see, we have to build bridges between the good relationship and not continue to build bridges to ruin relationship. Chinese, it is sinking in China. There's no denying the fact. But yes, it does definitely worry. I would go along with the ambassador to say, definitely all that pressure, China is on the back foot. There's no denying the fact. You've seen what Philippines are doing. Look, what Vietnam, what Indonesia are doing. No doubt, world over, China is cornered. Not just because of COVID, but also because of its expansionist policies. Also because of the kind of the tactics that Chinese are doing all over. Yes, but for us as Indians, we must be prepared, and preparation is the only way to prevent any misadventurism by China.
China General Hasnain is making roads even elsewhere, an axis that we cannot dominate. We dominated him on the Moldo garrison. We dominated the road that came from G219. But now he's realized that. So he's making another road. What does that reflect? If you were a Chinese general at this point of time, what would you be thinking of Indian deployment and Indian steps?
See, Gaurav, this issue we discussed, I remember at one stage also. You see, for the last 60 years, the Chinese have always kept us on the defensive. You know, our infrastructure, our deployment, etc., everything has been very defensive. The Chinese themselves also were not very offensive in their stance. They were only protecting their areas, or rather giving them security by keeping border guards posted in all these areas. There was no necessity of major infrastructure. Now, with the situation after 2020, they very well realize that their attempts at coercion of India have not really succeeded. In fact, there has been a huge pushback from India, and because of that, it is the Chinese who are on the defensive. I would say that this whole step, which is being taken to construct this bridge, in actuality, if you really look at it from a professional military methodology, they are actually carrying out defensive measures. They are not carrying out offensive measures. These are defensive measures. When you construct infrastructure to respond to something, it is considered defensive. I'm sure General Kulkarni will agree with me. So we've got them. We've definitely got them at the place where we want them. They are constructing whatever infrastructure at the moment primarily to enhance their overall capability and cut down times for response. They fully realize that this whole strategy of 2020 was not meant for war fighting, to my assessment, was never meant for war fighting. 50,000 troops cannot make a major difference to this area.
Yes.
Capture of territory, etc. cannot take place. They'll have to build up much more than that. This is what they are attempting to do, create the infrastructure for much more deployment, which can take place in the future. But my assessment is the Chinese will not tie themselves in knots by doing that kind of a thing. As General Kulkarni very correctly said, they are on the defensive. They are being tied down in different areas also. The United States is now responding with an Indo-Pacific strategy also. The Chinese, on the overall, if you look at it worldwide, are largely on the defensive. And with their economy also probably going into a downturn, you will find that the Chinese will be really up the gum tree for quite some time.
Would sincerely hope that. The point does remain that would they use this as diversionary tactics, as troubles may mount for them internally, and that is where we need to be prepared. We'll be tracking the story very, very closely. I've run out of time. A very engaging discussion as always. Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, General Hasnain and General Kulkarni for joining me here on India First. Many thanks. A quick break. Abha Bakaya comes up next with Business Today. Stay with us.